Sometimes I still lie awake at night, replaying every single moment of that semester, every sneer, every whispered insult, every disgusting gesture. And then I remember the look on their faces, the utter shock and humiliation, and honestly, a tiny dark part of me still smiles. But the bigger question, the one that truly haunts me, is this. Was I wrong for what I did? Did I take it too far? Or did those sexist frat bros deserve every single bit of public shaming and academic ruin that I brought down on them? I mean, really, tell me, would you have done the same thing if you were in my shoes? Let me take you back to the beginning, to the glorious, naive days of my freshman year at Northwood University. I was brimming with optimism, ready to conquer the world, or at least my pre-med courses. My parents, bless their hearts, had instilled in me a fierce independence and a belief that I could achieve anything I set my mind to, regardless of gender. So when I got accepted into Northwood, a prestigious university known for its strong STEM programs, I saw it as my golden ticket. I was particularly excited about the engineering department, which, while still male-dominated, had a growing number of incredibly talented women. I dreamed of becoming a biomedical engineer, designing prosthetics that would change lives. My roommate, Sarah, was a bubbly art history major from California, and we hit it off immediately. She was the perfect balance to my intense, focused nature, always reminding me to breathe and enjoy the college experience. We spent our first few weeks exploring the campus, attending orientation events, and trying to navigate the bewildering labyrinth of academic advisors. It was all a whirlwind of new faces, new freedoms, and an exhilarating sense of possibility. The social scene was, as expected, dominated by Greek life. Fraternities and sororities had a strong presence, throwing the biggest parties and seemingly running the campus. Sarah was immediately drawn to the idea of rushing a sorority, but I was more hesitant. I had always been a bit of an introvert, preferring deep conversations and academic pursuits over loud, crowded parties. Plus, the whole sisterhood thing felt a little manufactured to me. Still, I went to a few rush events with Sarah, mostly out of curiosity. It was exactly as I expected. Superficial small talk, forced enthusiasm, and a lot of girls trying to out-pretty each other. I quickly decided it wasn't for me. My focus remained squarely on my studies. I loved my classes, especially Introduction to Mechanical Engineering. The professor, Dr. Elena Petrova, was a brilliant woman, a pioneer in her field, and an incredible inspiration. She was tough but fair, and she treated all her students with respect, regardless of their background or gender. The class was challenging, but I thrived on it. I spent countless hours in the library, poring over textbooks, and even more hours in the engineering lab, tinkering with prototypes. It was during these lab sessions that I first encountered them. The Sigma Chi brothers. Sigma Chi was one of the most prominent fraternities on campus, known for their lavish parties, their athletic prowess, and as I would soon discover, their incredibly toxic culture. Their members were mostly jocks and wealthy kids, and they carried themselves with an air of entitlement that was palpable. They also happened to dominate the engineering department. There were about 5 of them in my Introduction to Mechanical Engineering class, and they quickly established themselves as the cool group, constantly making jokes, talking over other students, and generally acting like they owned the place. At first, their antics were merely annoying. They would whisper during lectures, make snide comments about other students' questions, and generally disrupt the learning environment. But it started to escalate. One day, during a group project brainstorming session, I proposed an idea for a more efficient engine design. It was a complex but innovative concept, and I had spent hours researching it. One of the Sigma Chi brothers, Chad, a hulking football player with a perpetually smug grin, scoffed loudly. "Cute idea, princess," he sneered. "But maybe leave the real engineering to the guys, huh? You stick to the pretty diagrams." My blood ran cold. I stared at him, my face burning, but before I could respond, Dr. Petrova, who had been circulating the room, overheard his comment. She stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Peterson," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "Is there something you'd like to contribute to the discussion? Or are you just here to provide unsolicited and frankly, offensive commentary?" Chad stammered, his face turning a shade of purple. No, Dr. Petrova. Just making a joke. Dr. Petrova didn't crack a smile. Engineering is no laughing matter, especially not when it comes to belittling your peers. If I hear anything like that again from you or any of your fraternity brothers, you will find yourselves facing disciplinary action. She then turned to me with a reassuring smile. Your idea, Ms. Davies, is excellent. Please continue. I felt a surge of gratitude towards Dr. Petrova, but also a growing sense of dread. I knew that Chad and his friends wouldn't forget that public rebuke. And they didn't. From that day on, their subtle bullying turned into overt harassment. It wasn't always direct. They'd accidentally bump into me in the hallway, causing my books to spill. They'd make loud, vulgar comments about women in general whenever I was within earshot. They'd leave passive-aggressive notes on my lab bench, things like "go back to the kitchen" or "don't mess with the big boys." They even started calling me feminazi behind my back, a delightful nickname I overheard one day in the cafeteria. The worst part was the insidious way they tried to undermine my academic performance. During group projects, they would intentionally leave me out of discussions, forget to include my contributions in presentations, or even subtly sabotage my work in the lab, making it seem like I had made errors. I started to dread going to class, my stomach churning with anxiety every time I stepped foot on campus. I tried to ignore them, to rise above it, but it was chipping away at me. My grades, which had been stellar, started to slip. I was constantly exhausted, my focus shattered. Sarah noticed the change in me. "What's going on, Mia?" she asked one evening, finding me hunched over my desk, staring blankly at a calculus textbook. "You're not yourself. You're jumpy, and you're barely sleeping." I broke down, pouring out the whole story, the constant harassment, the feeling of being targeted. Sarah was furious. "You have to tell someone," she exclaimed. "Dr. Petrova, the dean, someone." But I was hesitant. I didn't want to be seen as a winner, or worse, as someone who couldn't handle the tough environment of engineering. I also feared retaliation. If I reported them, who knew what they would do next? They had power on campus, connections. I was just a freshman. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was being systematically targeted and undermined by a group of entitled, sexist bullies, and my academic future, my mental health, everything I had worked for, was on the line. I was at my breaking point. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have reported them, knowing the risks? Or would you have found another way to fight back? I spent days agonizing over it. I walked around campus with a knot in my stomach, constantly looking over my shoulder. The thought of reporting them filled me with dread, but the thought of letting them win was even worse. Then one evening, as I was packing up my things in the engineering lab, I overheard Chad and his friends talking. They didn't see me, tucked away behind a row of equipment. They were bragging, loud and obnoxious, about a hazing ritual they had planned for a new pledge. It was truly disgusting, involving public humiliation and something about stolen property. As they walked away, I noticed a discarded, crumpled piece of paper on the floor. Curiosity, or perhaps pure desperation, made me pick it up. It was a partial schedule, outlining their upcoming fraternity events, including a detailed plan for their annual Founders' Day Gala, a huge, black-tie event that was the highlight of their social calendar. My eyes scanned the paper, and then I saw it. A small, almost imperceptible detail. They had listed the name of the catering company, Gourmet Bites, and a specific, rather unusual dessert, a custom-made chocolate fountain that dispensed 3 different types of molten chocolate. And then, a tiny handwritten note, almost an afterthought. Special order for the main event, anti-gravity chocolate fountain. Don't forget the extra stabilizers. A light bulb went off in my head. I remembered a lecture from Dr. Petrova about the physics of fluid dynamics, and specifically, the challenges of creating a stable, gravity-defying fountain. It required precise calculations, specific viscosity, and most importantly, the correct type and amount of a food-grade stabilizer. If the stabilizer was off, even slightly, the anti-gravity effect would fail spectacularly. The chocolate wouldn't flow upwards. It would just gush out the bottom, creating a colossal, sticky brown mess. A truly epic disaster, especially for a high-end gala. I spent the next few days in a feverish blur. I used my knowledge of engineering, my access to the university's chemical labs, and a healthy dose of online research. I found out that the Sigma Chi brothers had a notorious history of trying to impress their alumni and the university administration with extravagant displays, and this anti-gravity chocolate fountain was clearly meant to be their piece de resistance. I also discovered that Gourmet Bites was a small local catering company, known for its creative but perhaps less than technically savvy approach. They would likely follow the fraternity's special instructions to the letter, without questioning the specifics of the stabilizer. My plan began to form, a deliciously devious, perfectly engineered revenge. The Founders' Day Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the university's main event hall. It was a lavish affair, attended by university faculty, wealthy alumni, and of course the entire Sigma Chi fraternity, all decked out in tuxedos, looking incredibly smug. Sarah, who was accompanying me, and unknowingly acting as my lookout, gasped when we walked in. "Mia, it's gorgeous. And look, there's the chocolate fountain." And there it was, gleaming under the spotlights, a magnificent, multi-tiered contraption, waiting to be unleashed. The air was thick with anticipation. The moment for the grand unveiling arrived. The fraternity president, a pompous senior named Bryce, stepped up to the microphone beaming. "And now," he announced, his voice echoing through the ballroom, "for a special treat, showcasing the innovation and excellence that Sigma Chi represents, we present our custom-designed anti-gravity chocolate fountain." He made a grand gesture towards the fountain. A catering staff member, following instructions, flipped a switch. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, instead of the elegant upward flow of chocolate, there was a sickening gurgle. A stream of dark, viscous liquid shot out of the bottom of the fountain, coating the pristine white tablecloth. Then another and another, until all three spouts were spewing molten chocolate in every direction. It wasn't flowing up, it was flowing everywhere. The anti-gravity chocolate fountain had become a chocolate volcano, erupting with sticky, sweet chaos. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by confused murmurs, and then a few snickers. The catering staff frantically tried to turn it off, but the damage was done. Tuxedos were splattered, expensive dresses were stained, and the entire front section of the ballroom was rapidly transforming into a lake of chocolate. The smell, initially appealing, quickly became cloying and overwhelming. Bryce's face, which had been beaming with pride just moments before, was now a mask of horror and disbelief. Chad and his frat brothers, who had been standing nearby, practically drowning in the chocolatey deluge, looked utterly bewildered and humiliated. The university president, a stern woman known for her impeccable composure, was standing nearby, her face now a thundercloud. She looked from the ruined ballroom to Bryce, and then, her gaze swept across the bewildered faces of the Sigma Chi brothers. The murmurs turned into outright laughter from some of the younger attendees. The gala was effectively ruined. The catering company, though embarrassed, quickly pointed out that they had followed the special instructions provided by the fraternity for the extra stabilizers. They even produced the detailed order form, complete with Chad's signature, requesting a specific, completely incorrect amount of stabilizer that I had, through a carefully orchestrated anonymous email, convinced them was necessary for the anti-gravity effect. It turns out my anonymous tip had led Chad to believe he was getting a secret, even more exclusive formula for the fountain. He had enthusiastically signed off on it, completely oblivious to the fact that he was signing his own fraternity's public humiliation. The fallout was swift and severe. The university launched an investigation, not just into the chocolate fountain incident, but also into the fraternity's overall conduct. The Founders' Day Gala disaster, coupled with growing complaints about their general behavior, and a few other incidents that had conveniently surfaced during the investigation, thanks to another anonymous tip about their hazing rituals, which I may or may not have sent, led to the Sigma Chi fraternity being suspended for 2 years. Their house was shut down, their campus privileges revoked, and many of their members, including Chad and Bryce, faced individual disciplinary actions. Bryce, as president, was even put on academic probation. As for me, I watched it all unfold with a quiet satisfaction. No one ever connected me to the chocolate fountain sabotage. I had covered my tracks meticulously, ensuring every step was untraceable. My grades quickly recovered, and I went on to excel in my engineering program. Chad and his friends avoided me like the plague, their once smug faces now etched with a permanent look of paranoia and resentment. I didn't care. They got what they deserved. So here I am years later, a successful biomedical engineer, still occasionally wondering if I went too far. Was my revenge justified? Did they truly deserve to have their entire fraternity suspended and their reputations dragged through the mud for their sexist behavior? Or should I have taken the higher road, gone through official channels, and simply reported them? Part of me believes I fought fire with fire, using their own hubris and ignorance against them in a way that truly made them pay attention. Another part wonders if I stooped to their level. But then I remember the constant anxiety, the feeling of being belittled, the insidious way they tried to break me down. And honestly, I don't regret a single thing. I stood up for myself, and in doing so, I hope I sent a message that sexism and misogyny have no place in a university, or anywhere else. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.